Tēnā tātou, planting seeds. Hope everyone is doing well with where you are. And the podcast studio is in Kirikiriroa, in Waikato, Tainui. And sitting across from me is someone who has been in the health sector for many decades now, and is the chairman of Te Rau Ora, CEO, I should say, or I'll let you actually share your title. Riki Nia Nia, ki planting seeds e pehe ana koe te ata nei.
Yeah, morena tātou, mihi ana kia koe hoki e hoa. Nei rata mihi kia tātou katoa e whakarongo mai nā i te rā nei. Nā te kāneni ki te waro nai tūhoi me te kingitanga o Tonga e mihi ana kia tātou katoa. No, awesome, bro. No, thank you. Thank you for inviting me along. I've been watching your podcast for some time now. As I said to you before, we've started doing podcasts to whakanui our Māori health leaders, which is one of the reasons why Tā Mehana Jury set up Te Rau Matatini Mua, but now Te Rau Ora was a platform for our Māori health leaders to come together and network, and also paved the way to support the development of future Māori health leaders. Yeah, I'm not the chair, bro. We've got to make that clear in case he's listening. Donovan Clark's the chair, no konei, yeah. But now I've been in Te Rau Ora for the last 2.5 years as the CE, being very fortunate to be in that role. The other part of Te Rau Ora, Te Rau Matatini, was really to develop our Māori mental health workforce. A lot of our whānau, come into the system, health system, and the workforce there, while our general stream workforce okay, there's nothing like having a workforce that looks like us, understands us, is aware of the different challenges that we face on a daily basis in Te Ao Māori and Te Ao Pākehā and Aotearoa, and can support us through those challenges with that understanding of the diverse realities that exist across all of our communities. Yeah. So then, that's a little bit of background to Te Rau Matatini, Te Rau Ora, and also my role there.
There's big gaps within the health sector and space, isn't there? And when we think about where we are as a people, when we think about where Te Ao Māori is, and relative to some of the real horrific statistics that are out there and available for everyone to see, whether it's in suicide, whether it's in obesity, whether it's in mental health, whether it's in cancer, all of the kinds of things that we know are really challenging, winning in all of those kinds of spaces. And there's been a lot of mahi within the health space to really work on those areas, but still there's huge gaps. And so what are you seeing in regards to that as to why that's still happening?
Yeah, all of our whānau everywhere are impacted either directly or indirectly by poor health. And I think what a lot of people don't always realise or understand is that actually what determines our health and well-being is mostly what happens outside of the health sector. For example, employment, education, identity, and understanding and knowing where we are from, language, tō tātou reo, connection to our whānau, and, some wider things, including things like in Aotearoa ethnicity. Some of our academics in Māoridom have looked into that, and if you're Māori, you're more likely to be at the bottom of the rung in relation to some of those negative health statistics. And that continues for lots of reasons, but some of the reasons are still the same. And that is that we're not only the bottom of the rung in terms of the health system statistics, but also all education, welfare, justice, etc., and so on. And so when we're looking at our oranga strategy for our people, it needs to be beyond the health system. It needs to look at all the different aspects or determinants of well-being for our people. However,
it's opening it up more rather than just going straight to the problem.
Yeah,
it's actually looking a bit more broader.
Absolutely. For example, you're less likely, to have good health outcomes if you don't have your own home, or you've got a home to live in, or, if you don't know where you're from, if you don't have a whānau that supports you, if you don't have a good job, if you don't have a good education, all those things impact on your health and well-being. Now, having said that, we still need the health system when we need to access it to be effective for our people. And, some of the challenges that our people face on a daily basis is when they access the health system, it's not always responding to them in the way that they deserve to be responded to. And it can be quite complex to navigate, particularly once you get into the hospital system. And also there are some challenges accessing primary care, for example, as well, where some of our GP practices have closed their books and can't take more people.
Mm-hmm.
And whānau, and so that creates a challenge as well. Because ultimately, the best approach for our whānau to take is to stay healthy, is to stay fit, stay healthy, strengthen our have a good understanding of who we are, where we come from, and stay connected with our whānau, and have a clear vision or aspirations for your future.
Mm-hmm.
And as a whānau, all aspire to support that. And my observation is where those things are in place, then it's much easier to traverse what is quite a complex environment at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
What doesn't help that, of course, we've got an election this year, is poor public policy, and policy that doesn't understand the diverse realities of our people and some of the challenges that they've faced historically, and how that impacts, where we're currently sitting as a whānau and in the current context, and our opportunities to look forward. And one of the challenges for us as a people, from my perspective anyway, is, we do need to resolve the grievances, that are most definitely within our history, but we must also take the time to look forward and look at what are the things that we aspire for our children, for ourselves, so that we can put in place clear plans to, achieve flourishing whānau, or the oranga and health and well-being of our people.
And health is one of the key things that come to mind when I think about hauora, is when you're sick, you're only thinking about one thing, and that's to be well. But when you're well, you're not really prioritizing or valuing your hauora, because there's all of those other challenges that come, whether it's no money in the bank, whether it's challenges that you've gone through in the past, or everything else takes priority over your hauora until you're unwell. And so when we think about that, like, how can we simplify the importance of well-being, like whether it's on a whānau level or on an individual level? How can we find passage, or even for yourself, you've been in the space for so long, and it is very complex when we think about oranga and well-being, but is there a simple way to approach it that can create a level of either progress or a shift in how we are within ourselves as when it comes to our hauora?
Yeah, I heard this kōrero from Sir Buck Shelford, actually. He presented at a Tāne Ora conference a few years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And his advice and guidance around staying healthy was really simple. Eat the food that is good for you or that you love. Eat it with the people that you love, and do at least one thing that makes you feel good each day with the people that you love. And so it was quite a simple whakaaro, but ultimately I think what he was saying is, you've got to prioritize our nutrition, and look at, how we have food, or the sustenance that we put into our bodies. Also got to prioritize being around people that care for you and that you care for. We probably don't, spend enough time just valuing our own time.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you value your own time, you really only want to put your time, energy, and resource into the people that you love, and the things that you love doing, and the things that we believe in. So, from a very simplistic, perspective, my view is that we've got to value our own well-being, value our time, value our whānau, and value, our health and fitness by prioritizing it. Yeah. And I think, what we can sometimes do is get caught up in doing things that aren't necessarily good for us, and have a negative impact on us, or being around people, or being in spaces that aren't necessarily good for us. And so I know it's not simple for some of our whānau, but, I think where whānau make it a goal to actually have a oranga plan, to actually be focused on the future, but at the same time taking the time to reflect and learn from the past. It's probably, from my perspective, you're onto a winning formula there, whānau.
Yeah. When I even break it down in my own life and how I've come to value health and well-being, is because, like when you say, if you look at things that have happened in the past, then you can see patterns, you can see, okay, man, this has happened because of this and that, or there has been a driver, which is a deficit, whether for me personally it's been bullying or going through relationship breakups. There are these significant events that have happened throughout our life that can give us the feedback to be like, okay, that's happened. Can I learn from it? And am I able to then do something more productive with that, such as, prioritizing my hauora, or better understanding the way my mind thinks, or making better decisions, or taking certain behaviors out. And that's a real challenging process, isn't it? Is one, looking in the rearview mirror, then looking in the mirror at yourself, and then doing the hard thing, which is change, And so when you think about that, hey, what are some of the things that you're seeing in regards to that aspect of approaching wellbeing?
Yeah, well, every life experience, negative or positive, is really a gift, isn't it? It's an opportunity to reflect and learn from put it this way, it's a gift and a curse at the same time, because some of the life experiences that our people have gone through, you wouldn't wish on anybody. So I don't want to minimize
for sure.
Some of the not so nice things that have happened to our people and continue to happen. Having said that, it's also in some ways it's a blessing as well, because it's an opportunity to reflect and look at what we can do differently and how we get stronger from the experiences that we have had. Now, one of the big things that I've seen is that a lot of people continue to carry their trauma with them and be impacted by it, and it's reflected in their ongoing choices and also behaviour.
Yep.
And so, a big opportunity for us as a whānau and as tāne is to take the opportunity to take responsibility for addressing some of those traumas. Now, some of what I do is just simple stuff, like I love playing squash, and the reason I do that is, we have a good game of squash and then we have a good laugh afterwards. I also love playing golf. And same thing, we chew the fat all the way around the course. Our golf is terrible, but at the end of the day, it's so good for the wairua and it's so good for the oranga, just spending time with other tāne. And, from my perspective, the road to tāne ora for tāne is actually having positive times with our brothers, and actually prioritising that. In the old days, we used to get up to other things and do other things, particularly, when you're going through the Aotearoa rugby culture, that sends you on a different pathway at times. But as you get older, you realise actually what was great about playing rugby, or what was great about being in a team or being in sports, even I and Māori and things like that, is the time you get to spend, with mates, within your team, and the positive impact that connection and that sports, can have on your wairua. So again, like from my perspective, is we should prioritise those things that make us feel good, but also recognise when things that creep into that culture that aren't good for us, and stop doing it. And so, like now when I go around and when I play golf with my mates, we recognise now that it's just spending time together,
That's it,
getting smart to each other. And the golf is probably third or fourth down the list, but it's just a mechanism for bringing us together.
Yeah, beautiful. Me and a few good bros have done something similar, not necessarily around golf, but it's around piki maunga. So just being out in the taiao, being with bros, giving each other heaps, having laughs, and then having those little pockets of connection, and it's just those simple things of checking in. And when you have that kind of intention, I should say, around, people that you hold in high regard and vice versa, and that feeling of just being beside and walking alongside others is very strong in terms of building that self-esteem, confidence, and oranga. And oftentimes we're in this busy life, and I just shared over the weekend that if you're in a space of service, particularly in health, or whether it may be you're wearing all of these different hats, which is usually to support others, and then you go into your own life and you're walking along and sometimes you fall over, and then you get to a point where you look to your left and to your right and it can feel super lonely because no one's there. And so is there something that you feel is common for people in service, or for even that sense of feeling alone when maybe you're not, but there's that kind of āhua that comes about it?
Yeah, just before, piki maunga, Hiki Wairua, very like from my perspective, one of the positive impacts of doing things like that, in my view, is it's a real Hiki Wairua activities, and we need to prioritize more of that. And I really love what you're saying, is we've got to be deliberate and intentional about it. You got to prioritize it, and the positive impacts that result from it are enormous from my perspective. But it's only simple, spending time with people that we love, doing the things that we love. It's really simple.
Yeah.
But sometimes, it is challenging to do. You're feeling alone. I think as Māori, we're never alone. We just choose to be alone at times, or we're not aware that actually our tūpuna are always with us. Like for me, when my grandmother died when I was 11, and I've felt her with me. And sometimes I have to be honest with you, it's quite unsettling because I've always felt this presence with me. And I talked to my uncle Wiremu about it. He's a tohunga Wairua. And I said to him, this is a few years ago. And I said to him, uncle, everywhere I go, I can feel my, because my grandmother brought him up as well. I can feel Nanny with me. And I said, it's just a bit unsettling because she's always around. And he just looked at me and he was shaking his head actually. And he said, how lucky are you? And I said, what do you mean? He goes, how lucky are you? He says, I don't know why she would want to spend, all this time with you. But when my mother died, I haven't seen or felt her since. And yet now I know why she's wasting her time with you. And so, it just changed my perspective on it. And I thought, how lucky am I? That I feel my grandmother's presence with me every day. And then when my father died about 10 years ago, my father joined her. And so what I would say to the whānau out there, and it's different for all of us, I know, is that even when we do feel alone, we're never alone. And there are always people that we can reach out to. You just have to look. There's amazing rātonga Māori oranga across the country. For example, here in the Waikato, we've got, Lady Tureiti running Te Kōhao Health, which does an amazing job, as well as other kaupapa Māori organisations here and right across the country. That, if you reach out to them, the tautoko manaakitanga will be there. And so, I do understand that sometimes our people can or do feel alone, but, my view and my experience is that we're never
alone.
Yeah.
I was doing a bit of rangahau on you, Riki, and there was this quote that came up that I really liked, and you've shared a word in that quote many times already in our podcast, and I want to read it out to you to see what you reckon now. This is what you say. I believe every engagement we have with people should be a Hiki Wairua engagement. We should always aim to have a positive impact on the wairua of others, or at the very least, do no harm to another person's wairua. This should also be a fundamental aspiration of the health system. When all whānau engage our system, they should feel heard, supported, valued and safe. Our whānau should not have the contort themselves or their values to access our country's health services.
Absolutely. The very least we can do is not negatively impact someone else's wairua, because the trauma that creates can take generations to heal. There's a number of reasons why I think that, though. Well, one is that when I was growing up, my grandfather died about a month after I was born, and he came into the hospital. He picked me up. He lifted me up. This is my mother's has told me this, and my father. And he just said, one comes, one goes. And then he gave me back to my mother, he left, and then he passed away. But the fascinating thing about my grandfather, Riki Nia Nia, who was a shearing contractor, right across the East Coast, as far down as Mohaka, up the coast. He contracted over 10 shearing gangs, back in those days. But as I grew up, everywhere that I went across Aotearoa, and when I said, my name's Riki Nia Nia, and then the first thing that people would ask me is, what's your relationship to Rangatahi Nia Nia? Now, I'd never met my grandfather, and I'd be in my 20s 30s, and people were still asking me this. And then they would tell me stories about the impact or the engagement that he had had on their lives, and always positive, always positive. I remember, I went on to a marae in the Whanganui when I started working in Whanganui. And one of the kōrero about this particular kaumātua on this marae is pretty tough on, people that work inside the DHB or District Health Board or as part of the health system, because they've had a really bad experience, with our health whānau that have been servicing this particular place. And anyway, when I went on to the marae, and he was doing his whaikōrero, and in the whaikōrero he said, anyway, where are you from? No hea koe. I said, no te tairawhiti. And then, what's your name? Riki Nia Nia. And then he stopped. So, and then I had a Māori nurse with me, Rahi Kārina. She goes, oh, geez, never seen him do that. You really pissed them off. Then he started crying. Yeah. And he asked me, what's your relationship to Huatahi? And I said, which one? Because my father's name is Huatahi as well. And he goes, Senior. And he goes, yeah, that's my grandfather. And he said, boy, you're welcome here anytime.
Wow.
And when we went to Dudu, he stopped me and he said, when I was young, 15, sitting on the side of the road alone, and this truck pulled up and asked me, hey, what, you all right, boy? And I, no, not really. Get in the back. And he said, there was your grandfather in that truck. And by the time I had left working or being with your grandfather, he gave me a roof over my head. He taught me how to share. I met my wife and he bought me a car. And so when I left, I had everything. And, that story, it really impacted me. And what it showed me was that, how we treat people today impacts how their whānau and their families or them will treat our future generations. And so from my perspective, it's always been the same. Just treat people with respect. We don't have to agree with each other. One of the biggest challenges for our people is learning how to disagree. It's normal to disagree. It's normal to have different views, different perspectives. We don't have to have the same perspective. We might even have a different view about how we get there. But what's important is recognizing that there are some things that are important to all of us that we should, and I'm sure, all agree on. Like the health and well-being of our whānau, like the prosperity of our whānau, like the care for our tile, like the care for our waterways, our moana, etc., and so on. All of those things I'm sure we have in common, but we just have to learn about, how do we make decisions together without, it becoming a very destructive and challenging relationship or engagement. So how do we have Hiki Wairua relationships?
Yeah. What a powerful story, man. What a man your grandfather must have been, and even the significance in one comes, one goes, and then hearing his name, Huatahi, one again, and so one engagement. There's so many synchronicities within that, and it also comes to the word that was sticking out to me mostly within that kōrero passage that you wrote was the word wairua, and that's been threaded throughout a whole lot of our conversation as well, is that there's this real strong connection to Te Rau Ora and all of these, we could say, airy-fairy kind of ways of looking at things, but I wholeheartedly believe in the po that wairuatanga is. And so for you, is that central as well within Hiki Wairua and oranga as well, is like just the element of wairuatanga?
Yeah, absolutely. We'll never achieve our oranga, there's collective aspirations that we have for our oranga if we don't also look after our wairua, but more importantly, the wairua of others. And so, it should be a priority for all of us. At the very least, do no damage, bro.
Yeah.
My father was an Anglican minister. He was in the hahi, mihi mare, and he spent his whole life doing that, in my view. So some of our ministers, but hard case over because the ministers on the Sunday, but then on other days of the week they're off doing other things. Not all of them. Some of our whānau on the coast, they're all awesome. I'm not saying they weren't awesome, but my father absolutely believed in God, and it was undying. Every morning, I tata karakia. Every night, atupo karakia. And with my mother as well. And my mother was the first Tongan citizen in the Tairāwhiti. So in 1967, she was naturalised to be the first Tongan citizen. Alongside, actually, Meng Foon's mother was the other lady in that particular ceremony that was held by the Mayor of Gisborne at that time. But she basically, paved the way for all the other Pacific Island people that have come to the Tairāwhiti. She started that. And, when I think back how lonely that would have been for her, if not for the fact that her faith was very strong. Mm-hmm. And I get that, atua Māori, te atua I runga rawa hoki. And there's, we're in a conversation about that at the moment in Māori din and Tau Māori, and that's fine. But the one thing that my mum and my father had in common was their absolutely undying faith. My father did something amazing for my mother, and that is that when he brought her to the Tairāwhiti, because he went and asked permission from her father in Tonga, and he said yes. And, their first date was actually at church in Wellington. But when he brought her to the Tairāwhiti, he actually went and asked some of our tino kuia I taua wā, so turu tātare and many of our amazing kuia that we have in the Tairāwhiti, from the Tairāwhiti, who were part of the Māori Women's Welfare League at the time, if they would look after her. He was bringing her home, and would they look after her? Henry Sutherland, Dame Lorna Nata, Irina Nepe. There was many, Whaia Jackie Takani, there was lots of them. And they said yes. And so when he brought her there, they actually put a koro wai around her. And my mum was actually the first Tongan to become a life member of the Māori Women's Welfare because of our whānau on the East Coast recommended her. And initially, when they made that recommendation at that particular hui a tau of the Māori Women's Welfare League, it was rejected by the president because she wasn't Māori. And then I'm not sure if you have seen, because our Ngāti Porou whānau, and particularly our kuia and our wahine, on the East Coast, they don't like to take no for an answer.
Oh, yeah.
So they went, they had a Hiki Wairua conversation, and then they ended up agreeing. And then, my mum became the first life member.
Beautiful.
But yeah, the one thing that they had in common was their faith. And really, the point that I wanted to make is that I think it's important that our whānau, doesn't matter what you believe in, whatever you believe in, if it's having a positive impact on you and your whānau and enabling you to make the right choices that are leading to positive outcomes for your whānau, then believe in it, whānau, from my perspective. Kia hu ki te rā kaupapa.
Tāhua, I fully resonate with that too in terms of their kōrero. Everyone's got their own ways of viewing things, but if there's something that leads to more positive interactions, engagements and well-being, then, who is anyone to kind of challenge that away from someone? And there's another kōrero that comes to mind when I think about wairuatanga or spirituality that's connected to mental well-being. And I have to interject this somewhere, but I forgot who actually shared the kōrero. But if we have poor mental well-being, there's a correlation between poor spiritual well-being and so forth, because they're all interconnected. And so is mental well-being, and this doesn't have to be a definite answer, but can you see poor mental well-being being impacted by poor spiritual well-being and vice versa? Like, what's your whakaaro on that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, if we don't have balance, it impacts everything. So physically, I'm not feeling well. That impacts my mental well-being. It also impacts my wairua. And so they're all connected. I think Matua Mason, Professor Sir Mason Jerry's, Te Whare Tapawha model, still relevant today.
Yep.
Hangingaro, wairua, tinana, whānau, they're all connected. And we know that there are other elements to that as well. And Matua Mason is actually bringing out a new book soon.
Cool.
So looking forward to seeing that, Huia publishing that. And so looking forward to the launch of his new book, because it is oranga focused. But yeah, all those things are connected. And there was probably no greater example of just how interrelated and connected those things are on our health and well-being than during, the time of COVID.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that really showed up, just how all those determinants can impact our health and well-being. And, for being here in Waikato, pardon me, during that time, I just want to acknowledge Kingi Tuheitia. Because he was a real champion during that time, not just for the health and well-being of our whānau here i Waikato, but Hurironga Te Motu. And, the kōrero that or the tongikura that he shared with us was amohi ake te oroa te iwi ka puta ki te whēo. Let the health and well-being of the people always be paramount. And from my perspective, like I've, since being in the Waikato, so I've only come to the Waikato in 2020. It's been amazing just to get a better understanding and more immersion in the approach of and the work of the kingitanga, tō tātou kingi, and now te ariki nui, nā wai honui te pō. And, what she also, has reinforced the connection between all the elements and dimensions to our well-being in her first koro nei hana i taua i te rā tau.
Tino rangatira tia tō Rau Ora.
Tino rangatira tia tō reo, mana motu hake tia te taio. Tino rangatira tia tō Rau Ora, mana motu hake tia tō pāhara keke. Now, to me, that's a framework for wellness.
Yep.
And, as much as, I've got so much respect and admiration for Kingi Tuheitia and his contribution to the health and well-being and the kotahitanga o tātou whānau, Hurironga Te Motu, she's come in and absolutely has taken it to another level. But more importantly, for those of us in Oranga, when she said that, she provided us a framework to focus on moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
And so like at Te Rau Ora now, what we're doing is just looking at how we can align to bring that tongikura to life.
Mm-hmm.
And all these, when we look at the kōrero of our ariki, of our leaders, of our whānau, of our academic leaders like Matua Mason, of our oranga champions like Dame Tariana Turia and others, they all point to the fact that nothing is disconnected. It's all connected. It all impacts on our well-being, and we have to address issues right across all of them. Starting by prioritizing our own health and well-being. Because if we don't prioritize it, we don't value our own health and well-being, we don't value our culture, our reo, our identity, our whānau connections, nobody else is going to.
And that's simple. It's a simple way of looking at it, if we can value things that are natural to us, then, man, it opens things up. And one of the main kōrero that also comes out, whether it's in this political space and even within our hauora, is that when we are well, it benefits everyone, as opposed to feeling like there's this sense of competition, like we can actually move more into collaborative spaces if we're well within ourselves first and foremost. Then that can start on an individual level, but then it comes into your whānau and then it starts to move out that way. So if we can look at it in those kinds of circles rather than looking at the big issue out there and not necessarily being able to value it within yourself first and foremost, then letting it spread from there. And so I really feel that that's an important kaupapa, is valuing things first and then moving out into the bigger spaces.
Yeah, the success of Aotearoa is, in my view, 100% connected to the success of Rangatahi Māori. If Rangatahi Māori are successful and we nurture, foster them to fulfill their potential, this country will, it's unbelievable in my view what will happen to the flourishing of what happens in this country. If we don't prioritize that as a country, then we will continue to have to focus on deficit approaches to health and well-being.
Let's go.
But if we actually get in there and make that a priority for our country to make sure that every rangatahi in this country succeeds and fulfills their potential from the time they are born to the time that, they start to fulfill their potential, lead and do the things that are going to make the biggest amount of difference in the fastest way possible for our whānau, it will have a huge positive impact on this country. And the divisive kōrero that occurs that suggests that that is not the case is not helpful. It's not getting us anywhere. It's not Hiki Wairua kōrero, and also it's short-sighted. And what it ultimately reinforces is a deficit view and way of looking at what is best for our country and the people that are in it. Last week I talked to Chief Lynn Maluba, who is the chief of the Mohegan tribe in the United States. And she was also the first Native American treasurer of the USA. And so between 2022 and 2024, Chief Maluba was the treasurer in the Biden government, appointed by Joe Biden, President Biden. And so because when they print currency, the treasurer has to sign it. So every dollar bill, $20 bill, $5 bill, all the different US currency that's printed at that time has got Chief Maluba's signature on it. So I'm still waiting for my $1 note. But,
yeah.
But the point that she made was one of the things that the tribes have become really good at in the US is articulating to the wider communities that they are living in the difference that a successful tribal nation has, or the positive difference has on the wider community, and the benefits of that to the wider community. And I think that's, probably one of the areas that in Aotearoa and Te Ao Māori, that's one of the things we probably have to get better at, is that narrative and telling that story about how positive outcomes for iwi, hapu, whānau, marae actually have a much wider impact on, the wider community.
Rather than the deficit narrative. Yeah.
And also that, from my perspective, our people are not backward in coming forward and wanting to help everybody in the community, because it's the same thing. It impacts our wairua when we don't. It's something for us to work on.
I think that's a theme that I have been noticing in conversation, whether it's on the podcast or even within my own interactions, and that's more around that shift that is taking place around being aware of, there's this deficit way of thinking, whether it's the victim mentality, but there's the shift in, maybe we can shift that by being a bit more optimistic or having more of these positive narratives being the way that we move the energy towards. Because as you say, if we're reinforcing that narrative, it becomes like a domino effect, or builds momentum at least. And the ripple effect that comes from that is actually quite astounding, outstanding, as you say. And so, when we're thinking about the role of rangatahi, and I know that's a big thread within Te Rau Ora as well, is, creating spaces for rangatahi voices, or for them to get the support that they need. What are you, as an organisation or as a movement, what gaps are you looking at within the rangatahi spaces to actually give them the required support that they need?
Yeah, well, we've got some awesome rangatahi leaders that are involved with Te Rau Ora, and we've got, in particular, we started a couple of years ago a new rangatahi development fund, which we use to allocate resources out to rangatahi leaders who are advancing innovation for the betterment of the health and well-being of rangatahi across the country. We've also just this year been piloting an emerging leaders program, which not necessarily just focused on rangatahi, but emerging leaders. And that really is to give my vision is that we will create or help develop another 100 Māori leaders in particular that we can insert into different leadership roles, not only in Te Ao Māori, but in Te Ao Pākehā as well, because we need them right across the board to influence not only the policy settings, but the funding settings and the strategic direction that the health sector is working in, so that we can create a system that actually is going to enable, better access for our whānau when they need it, but also whānau that enable whānau to flourish. So in order to do that, we need to strengthen the leadership capability. And so that's been a big focus of mine is, just how do we continue to grow and develop our rangatahi, give them opportunities, whether it be through funding, whether it be through work, whether it be through, attending hui, sitting at the table, being able to share their ideas, etc., and so on. Yeah, that's definitely a priority for us, and it's one we're still working on. I'm not saying that by any means we're the gold standard. I know that there are many organisations that are putting energy and Te Ao Māori into the development of their rangatahi, but also the endeavour for me is to get the balance so that they are also exposed to good pakeke, good kaumātua leadership, because we've all got roles, and one there's like tāne, wahine, it's not, in my view, it's we've all got important roles to play. Let's start by doing our roles right as a tāne before worrying about what the wahine are doing, and vice versa, because they're all important roles, and we shouldn't be applying a colonial lens to some of the ways that we assess, our different roles and responsibilities. Wahine, tāne, tamariki, taiohe, rangatahi, pakeke, kaumātua, we've all got important roles.
We do.
None of them more important than others. Yeah, and we need to support each other to be able to do them well.
And what does leadership look like to you? You say you're looking at a rangatahi or our future leaders or ngā rangatahi o inaene, ngā rangatira o inaene. What does leadership look like? Is that in holding themselves? Is that knowing who they are? Is it being good, great communicators? Like, how do you see leadership for our young people?
Yeah, same things really. Hiki Wairua, always look to uplift the health and well-being and the wairua of other people. Also, as you rightly pointed out, identity, culture, whānau, connection. As a leader, in my view, having those things keeps us grounded, but also helps us to understand the important things that we are here for. And for me, it's, making the biggest amount of difference in the fastest way possible to achieve the aspirations that we collectively have for the health and well-being of our people, or the oranga of our people. And so when I'm looking to invest in the development of rangatahi leaders, that's what I'm looking to develop is rangatahi and other leaders who prioritise the health and well-being of our people. But also do it in a way that's consistent with our tikanga and our matapono and our values, because that makes a difference. How we get there sometimes is just as important as the journey is just as important as the outcomes that we're trying to achieve together. And that's why I always say, we should do no harm to other people's wairua.
At the very least,
At the very least.
Yeah, wow.
And become a bit more mature and learning how to disagree. Because,
it's okay to not be on the same page.
It's normal, bro.
Yeah.
It'll be boring if we were.
Why is there tension of wanting to be? Is there like an ego structure there, or being like, man, I'm seeing it this way, so you got to come and understand? Like, what is that? Is it, what are you seeing in regards to that?
Yeah, a lot of it's ego-driven, in my view, and just still developing the muscle memory and the capability to be able to agree to disagree and then find a way forward without then creating years of conflict. On which we then, we never forget. Yeah, and, our people are competitive at the best of times. And, I just think it's one of the work-ons for us as a nation, Te Ao Māori nation is, let's just work out. Yeah, just using the Native American example again. They got over 500 tribes there, bro. They work together. Now, there's a lot of learning there. And one of the things, and I'm not saying it's perfect, by no means is it perfect, but one of the things that they have been able to do nationally is to organise themselves so that they have national collectives that advocate for their health and well-being, or for their other political interests within the US. So they've got mechanisms in place to be able to advance their collective aspiration. At no time will they allow that to impact the mana motuhake of individual tribes, but there are things that they stay focused on collectively. Now, for example, here, over there, the three things that I can ascertain when talking to the tribal leaders in the US is, one is they have in common that they work together on, no matter what, is to protect their sovereignty at all means. So any legislation, any policy, any changes in the way that the federal government might think that may negatively impact their sovereignty, they're collective. They come together, they work together, and they put a pole in the ground and they say, this is our collective view. They don't budge off it. But at an individual tribe level, there are things that, no, that's your awa, so yeah, you talk about that, you do what you need to with that awa, because that's, that is your manu motuhake, or that is something that individually the responsibility belongs to you as a tribe. For them also, and again, it's different over there, is that they want the funding from the Crown, but they don't want the Crown involved. So they really want the Crown to move out of their space, because from their perspective, there's no one that is better able or more committed to caring for and supporting their whānau than themselves. Yeah. And the third thing is being really clear on these are the rights and responsibilities of individual tribes versus this is what our national collective agenda is. And so, the king started that. Yeah. Ko teitanga whānau, come together. What are the things that, that we have in common? Well, Te Tiriti o Waitangi is one of those things. Surely we all agree on that. The taiao is another one of those things. Surely we all agree that we need to protect the taiao. Our pāharakeke is another one of those things, and our rewana identity. So these are things I think we all have in common that at a national level we could have a collective view on. Yeah. But what's most impressive by our whānau and the Native American Indians is that they also have put in place really robust decision-making frameworks so that they can actually make decisions together and stick to them. Yeah. And so we're on that journey. They've been colonized for a lot longer than us, so we're still on that journey. Yeah. They've got hundreds of years ahead of us. And so as Tao Māori, while we're really awesome at some things, there are some things that we're still evolving in. And collective decision-making is probably, I'm not saying that it hasn't always worked, but that's probably one of the things that we still need to
mature in. But at the end of the day, it is okay not to be on the same page as long as the common goal is still the main thing. And the way that I look at, I guess, things of that nature is when we do have a common goal, there's just so many different pathways to get there. And like we can talk about men's mental health, for instance. There's so many kaupapa now, which is great, that align to supporting men's mental health. And I have a kaupapa, I know many others who have kaupapa, and for me it's like, that's amazing, because what they provide is more access and ways to be able to support tāne in need. And the way I communicate is different than the man down the road, or it's different than what might be in Te Rau Ora, or it's different than what's down in this space. But all of it is, in my view, really, really good to have. It's good to have the options, because the way people are raised, the way that they receive things, the way that they interpret things, they're going to receive it differently from different people. But if they align to it and it helps their oranga and their well-being, to me it's a good thing.
Yeah, I must say I listened to Pio's interview with your podcast with you. I thought it was awesome. I listened to it with my mum, who's 87, and my auntie, her younger sister, who's 77. And they absolutely loved it, bro. And what they loved most about it was just how honest and open Pio was. I don't know Pio, but and just how wise he was. Some of the whakaaro he shared, and also, he's been obviously still mamai about the loss of his tama, I think it was, and that all came through. But more importantly, I thought what was amazing about it was he also has shared some of his insights and some of his journey to get through that. And I thought, man, that's so valuable. It's so valuable to be able to hear that from someone like Pio, who's, most of us know, or across the, across the motu. And while I don't know him personally, I just think, and even my mum and auntie were extremely positively impacted by his kōrero. I'm surprised they sat there for the whole time. Well, not surprised, but I was impressed they sat there for the whole time and just really got a lot out of, particularly, his kōrero too about being a father and how he approaches that and being part of a whānau and, being so open about the lessons that he's learned. Yeah. So mihana ki tērā rangatira.
He's, I took so much away from that particular podcast and, the influence and how it's really gave me a bit more clarity on how I can come back to one of the po, whether it's, the whānau po or it's the pāharakeke po, because that's where it really does matter most. And there was something that you spoke about is, can we simplify things by really looking at what matters most to us and giving energy to those things, whether it's being around, the people that you love. Awesome to hear that you're with your mum and your auntie last night and having time together. And, whether it's, going on trips or being present with your whānau or, being out in the taia or these different activities, these are ways that really contribute to wellness, and it gives us the energy required, I suppose, too, to look in and address the things that are really hard. Like, so for me, and I've shared this with many others too, is that if you're in your own individual space and there's things that are difficult, things that are real challenging, the least that we can do is just find ways to be able to better our situation by making better decisions to fill up our cup. And then it gives us the strength to be able to look at the things that are hard, that are more challenging. And so I wanted to, I guess, use that as a segue to talk more about, to close us off as well, what is around the amount of years you've spent in the health sector, the amount of things that you've seen, the systems that you've been a part of, the gaps that you have filled, or the gaps that you have seen. What are some of the insights that you've had within your role in the health sector, and what has been your main driver within that space?
Just going back to the lead into that question is, I think you're right, is the way forward for our whānau and oranga is just keep it simple. Right? Let's not overcomplicate it, whānau. Look after yourself, look after your whānau, stay connected, remember who you are, or understand and learn who you are, and do the things you love doing that are good for you.
Yeah. And that's it.
Yeah, that's it.
Don't overcomplicate it. Don't dabble over there, or don't put too much attention to the things that you're not doing. Just do the things that you can do.
Yeah. I don't want to minimize people's trauma and challenges that they're going through, but those are the basics that I stick to. I spent a lot of time with my mum and her sister's over for a couple of weeks from Brisbane, and so it's beautiful, bro, because they're not here for long. They're not here for long, and so we got to make the most of it, spending time with the people that we love and listening to their stories as well, and just thinking through what that actually means, because some of what my mum's done is amazing. I'll leave that for another time. What have I seen? Probably the most amazing thing that I've seen in the health system over the past 30 years is just the growth of the Māori workforce. We've got so many Māori doctors now, so many Māori nurses, psychologists, a few more psychiatrists. For example, at Te Rau Ora, we got Dr. Riki Bell, who was the first Māori physio to do a PhD in physiotherapy. And, we're breaking down all the barriers, we're breaking down all the obstacles and over the past 30 years, and we've just developed such an amazing network of older, more experienced Māori health leaders, clinicians, non-clinical staff as well, managers, executives, CEOs, etc. across the country. It's just amazing to see the growth and development of the Māori workforce. And even if you look at the health system now, it's led by a Māori, Dr. Dale Bramley, who's really committed to Māori health equity, but obviously has a lot of other competing interests and challenges and priorities that he has to navigate in a very complex environment. And so, me ana ki aia hoki. But it's just been amazing to see all that development of capacity and capability. The downside is that while we have grown all these different workforces, by and large, they're still in a Te Pākehā type framework. And so one of the reasons that Te Rau Ora exists is to help develop the Māori health workforce that we need and not only just Māori mental health, but, in other parts of oranga as well, the oranga mahi as well. And develop a workforce that is not only professionally competent, but also has we reinforce the values, the tikanga,
the cultural competency,
the cultural competencies that are important to our whānau, and also who look like our whānau, live with our whānau, who are our whānau. And because, they're going to be more committed and also more able to work with our whānau to help them navigate what is still a very complex health system.
Yeah.
The health system is overcomplicated in my view because it's workforce centric, and particularly the clinical workforce. And so we've got, we need to have an honest conversation with our health professionals. And yes, they are valuable, and yes, they do amazing things. But at the end of the day, it's not about you, whānau. It's about the whānau. The whānau will always be the kaupapa. And the health and well-being of our whānau will always be the kaupapa.
When it's not it creates the bloody, when it's not, it creates that separation, and also whānau start turning away,
Yeah, it creates separation, it creates division, it creates cost, and it creates ineffectiveness. And so breaking down some of those barriers and some of those cultures that exist within the health system to put the whānau at the centre. We talk about it a lot, but we're still to do it. We put the whānau at the centre is probably the biggest gap or the biggest challenge that we have. Now, recently, over the Christmas period, my mum had to ended up in hospital, and before that, I've also had to navigate the the health system with my son, who's also had some health challenges. It's very challenging for people who don't know how the health system works to navigate the health system, and particularly the hospital end. So if you don't have an understanding, our whānau, I can see, will become very overwhelmed, very challenged by that.
And are you meaning with whānau going in, either supporting whānau or in the hospital, the sense of overwhelm and challenge because of just not knowing what's going on or how they're being treated, or like all of those kinds of things?
So when, for example, my son, he was meant to go into the Air Force. I'll just talk about this quickly. He was meant to go into the Air Force when he was 21. Now, he passed all the tests, but he failed the hearing test. And so they retested him and came back, and, he stood up at his 21st and he told all our whānau, whānau, I'm going into the Air Force, because he was more or less accepted, but was just this one last test. And, I've dedicated his life, this is what he said, to protecting our country. Not sure how he was going to do that, but anyway, that was his, amazing vision and dream. But then he got this message back from the Air Force to say that they wanted to retest his hearing. When they came back with the results, what they found is that my son had 3 tumours, one on each ear and one on his spine. Yeah. And so, fortunately for him, not everyone's, is this fortunate, is that they were benign, but they were huge, and they all had to come out. And what it meant for him is that he went from, having this amazing dream shattered in minutes, seconds, to wanting to go off and, be a pilot in the Air Force, to now fighting for his life. The fact is, though, if he didn't want to go into the Air Force, we probably never would have found out.
Yeah, right.
So his first surgery was 12 hours long, and they took out the tumour on his right ear. Before I would let them touch my son, I called a whānau hui with the clinicians. And, we talked about the potential pathways and, what could be done, and, whether or not it's a reality that, was it operable? And they said, yep, no, Rick, it's good to go. And, no, we can do it. It's going to take 12 hours and this and that. And I said, oh, yeah, okay. And this was in the middle of COVID, bro. So this is the other thing. I said, no whānau support and all this carry on. So I said to them, okay, I talked to my son, and this is what he's asked for. And so this is what I'm now championing to you or advocating for. And I said, the first thing is that he never wants to be alone. So we're in COVID here. For us as a whānau to enable that, we're going to need to have 2 people here at all times. That's the only way we can make that happen. Now, your policy, your visitor's policy says one person. I just wanted you to know that we're not visitors. We're whānau. And we're not here to come for 5 minutes and leave. We're here until we're here. We will arrive with him and we will leave with him. Yeah. So first thing, we just need to get the language right. And, they were supportive of that. But there's going to be two of us in all time. The second thing is that he wants karakia in the morning and he wants karakia in the evening. And so that's what we're going to do as a whānau. And I said, because of if it was anything but for the COVID restrictions, we'll do that online. But it means that we have to be here at 7 in the morning and 7 in the evening to do that. And that's, yep. And then the third thing is you guys need to know who he is. Because he's not just, at the end of the day, this is what what my son means to his whānau, And I was able to talk to him about this is why he was named Joshua. This is, his role in our whānau. This is what he means to his grandparents. This is what he means to us. And so before I hand him over to you guys to do your operation, all I need to hear from you guys is that you will do your best to look after my son and to make sure that we will get the best possible outcome. That's all we ask for. We recognize that the outcome will be the outcome, but that's the only commitment that he's asking of us to ask you. You bring all these clinicians. Yeah, Riki. Yeah, no. We will not. And was actually the anaesthetist says, Riki, we will do everything that we can to make sure that when we give your son back to you, he's better than when he went in. Now, that's all you can ask for. And so, they let us go down to the operating theatre before we went in. We had karakia. Got them all to come out so we could have karakia. And they were doing a sort of a briefing, and then they said, we'll leave you fellas to have karakia now. And I said, no, stay. This karakia is not for him. This one's for you fellas. Because he's had 100 karakia just to get to this point. So you fellas don't F it up. And so, they all came out, had a big karakia, and they took my son in. And then, 13 hours later, bro, they brought him back. And, it was the most stressful time that I've ever had as a parent. And
but that's what you're saying about knowing what to do in those spaces.
That's right.
Actually,
that's
rather
right.
where a lot of whānau wouldn't even know that they could actually have those hui. They'll just take what the doctor says as face value, but they're still left with all of the uncertainty and the feelings of like, man, this is still super overwhelming.
And that's the point I'm making for our whānau, is that they can have these conversations. And our clinicians, for most part, are amazing people who want to do the best for our whānau. But also when the clinicians can see how seriously the whānau take it, rightly or wrongly, they start taking it seriously too. And when you've got a plan which everyone is sticking to, and keeping the tūroro at the centre, and not making it about ourselves, but making it about, actually, that we're here for, this is the kaupapa, this person is, or in this instance, my son is the kaupapa. It's easier to get everybody on board with that and to help them navigate those very complex systems. The other thing I always make sure is they always put what we agree to in the notes. So then, because when they do handovers, because there's 3 shifts a day, and then the nurses come in, and the different kaitautoko come in, they start asking you the same thing as, you obviously haven't read the notes. So start by reading the notes, whānau, and then we can have a conversation.
So you're not having to repeat yourself over and over and over again.
It's their job to read the notes. It's actually their job to know what, these are people that we're caring for. The whole point of the health system is to care, treat, rehabilitate, and bring back to health, our whānau, not just whānau Māori, but all whānau. That's the whole purpose of it.
Because you don't want to, because sometimes like in our roles, it can just be something like it's a mundane thing, and like in the doctor's case, they sometimes not even seeing a patient as an actual person, It's just the body that they're doing a work on. Not to say that that's what all doctors are like or anything like that, but in some cases it could just feel like that at times.
No, they do. That is how they see them. And you can't blame them. They're just having, hundreds of people. But at the end of the day, if we take the time to remind them that actually these are important people to us, they're not just, this isn't just the boy. This is the role that this boy plays in our whānau, and this is what his future looks like for us. Being really clear with them, and then they get it. They start to take it on board. And
beautiful.
Of course, we've also had amazing champions in the health system like Dame Nada Glavish, who's really set the tikanga framework for the health system. and others as well, that, it's important to acknowledge. But they've enabled us to create a workforce that can engage in those conversations. And even if whānau don't always do that, I think you'll find, particularly at the bigger, at most of the hospitals, that they will be willing to do that. And that particular conversation was at Auckland Hospital. And I had the same conversation in Waikato Hospital over the break with my mum. Same thing. They're very responsive when they can see you taking it seriously.
Beautiful, man. That's actually so helpful, just to hear an actual example of what that can look like to help ease whānau within those overwhelming times and settings, but also, release some of the stress that comes, because at the end of the day, having someone that is unwell that's really close to you, it's already creating some kind of worry, anxiety, but just to have something to be able to gain a bit more clarity and openness to get the care that is, what would it be? It's like, at the bare minimum, that's what you should feel like in those spaces, is that you're feeling cared for and looked after.
Yeah, you should be cared for in the way you deserve to be cared for. That's, that's the whole point of the health system.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, no, that's right. And
cool.
And our whānau deserve that. That's why we pay, these health workers. That's their job.
To do their mahi. Yeah. Beautiful. Yeah. Man, that's awesome. That's awesome. So, we have been going for a little while here, Riki, and we'd just love to pass it over to you, to perhaps, share some final words for our kaupapa, for our kōrero, that perhaps may lead towards, the aspirations that you would like to see, whether it's within whānau or within the health sector. And just want to give it over to you, kia whakakapi e ne kōrero.
Yeah, no, awesome. I just, appreciate the opportunity to come and talk with you, and to talk about the things that obviously I'm very passionate about. Yeah, I think the way forward, the fastest and best way forward for our people is together. And we have to find a way to work together, recognizing that, our people are very clever. They have different ideas. We wouldn't want everybody to be the same. Sameness will just lead us into a hole, really. If we were all the same, we never would have arrived here from Hawaii. You need people who are thinking outside the square, outside the box, who are challenging our thinking and our whakaaro, adding that rigor, to the decisions that we are making. But the biggest challenge for our people at the moment is just recognizing that, indifference is normal. Having disagreement is normal. Having different opinions is normal. Not being on the same page is normal. But we must work on and develop the muscle and the capability and maturity to agree to disagree, and also to agree on the things that are important to the health and well-being of all of our people, and working across the motu nationally to advance those things in a much more mature way. And so, that's the big challenge for our whānau moving forward. There's some great examples in the US. They've got an extremely challenging environment that they're working in. But the one thing, when I talked with Chief Maluba last week, she said is that we don't align to any one political party, because we all have different views about politics. We're just as diverse as the Pākehā community. But one thing we are clear on is that we know that whoever's in power, we've got to work with them. So you've got to find a way to do that. And so that is the level of maturity, I think, or the challenge, or the opportunity, I should say, for our whānau here in Aotearoa, is just working out how to agree to disagree, and what are the most important things that we need to prioritize nationally, work on together, and put the decision-making frameworks around it for the betterment of the health and well-being and oranga of our. Tēnā tātou, te ui, tēnā tātou.
Let's go! Kua whakatō te kākano, man. What an awesome way to wrap it up. And it's good that you're bringing those conversations to the table, because it could seem like a wero, it could seem like a challenge, but it's an invitation, It's an invitation for us all to sit at the table and have our opinions and voices and things of that nature shared, but just allow it to sit on the table. It doesn't have to be like a direct thing, and that creates the wehe, the separation, or even too much of an ego battle where, just being able to hear one another is a gift in itself, but doesn't have to be taken in a way where it changes how you are as a person at the same time. But coming towards the common goal is something that I feel is really, really important for us just to take on board, and, really taking what we need to continue to do the mahi, not lose sight of what's actually important because of what's going on over here.
Yeah, well, the goal is not always to be right. The goal is to work out what is the right thing to do.
Yeah, not to be right, but to figure out what the right thing to do is. Oh, awesome. What a good way to finish our kōrero. Tēnā koe, Riki, e mihi ana kia koe ki tō kaupapa, ki te whānau o Te Rau Ora, and yeah, for all the amazing mahi that you've done throughout your career, but also for the mahi that you're working towards in this moment and towards the future. So tēnā koe, no tira, e te whānau, kua reare mai ana, tēnā koutou. Choice. Ngā mihi.